Hello, my friends. Welcome. This is obviously the next episode here, the next lesson here. This is lesson 22, the sound of silence. You hear that? So, not a whole lot to say today. And at the same time, there is a lot to be understood, whatever fucking word you want to use. There's a lot in the potency of the silence, which is really what I want to point to today. Because ultimately, you're going to come across different periods of your life, different circumstances, different events, different relationships, different decisions where you're just not gonna know. And so much of what we try to do, all of the decisions that we try to make, all of the actions that we take, all of the systems that we try to create in our lives, even all of this that we've been doing, it is to try to create this idea of certainty, this idea that there's something that we can hold on to, that we don't have to ever question, this sense of security and safety, and it's all right, and it's all, we can hold on to this. We don't have to question it. And I'm here to tell you, it's just a bunch of bullshit, bro. It's an illusion. It is an illusion. And it's not to say that you realize that it is an illusion and you don't at the same time still do everything within your power to create whatever version of that idea of safety and security and certainty for yourself. And that is why it's literally what we're doing, what we've been doing this entire program, all of these lessons. Well, I wouldn't say all of them per se, but the culmination of all of these lessons and building this system for your life, it is to provide you with that sense of safety and security and certainty, to know that the things that you are doing, the activities that you are engaging in, it's all aligned with your higher purpose and who you have the potential to be, who you already are, whether you recognize it or not, and tapping into your genius and then being able to funnel that genius. Pour that genius through you. Empty yourself to allow the genius to flow in whatever way is the highest level of service to yourself and others. That's really what we've been doing here. And now I'm here to tell you that it's all a bunch of bullshit. It's all a construct, which is just a complex of ideas, and that's okay, and it's great, and it's beautiful, and we love it. We love the ideas. It's just not getting lost in that they are just ideas, okay? And really what that is coming to is when you recognize that no matter how hard you try, and in a certain sense, in a paradoxical sense, the harder you try to uphold some level of safety and certainty and security in your life, the more it may tend to elude you, because you are constantly, through your trying to create this sense of safety and security, you are at the same time, in the same breath, implying that it is not there. Just in the same way, when you are always identifying with problems and you are always trying to find solutions, you're always trying to fix something. The act of trying to fix something, the idea that there are things that need to be fixed in itself implies and perpetuates the idea that there is a problem in the first place. And ultimately, when you discover the one cause of all effects, which in this most just simplest terms is God. God is the one cause of all effects. So when you really realize that one cause and can embody the unity of that one cause, then you have a knowing of all effect, which, like, we've been through this. We don't have to go through this whole process again, but it's just the complementary opposites. The divine mathematics. We've touched on this in various different ways throughout this course here, and we will continue to do so in different ways as we continue to expand. But really, we're at this place now, and even me personally, I'm at this place. As you may notice, the energy's a little different. I'm kind of in this place of my intention is just emptying the vessel, because even me am continuing, I'm continuing to grow and learn, obviously. And I'm not fucking perfect. I wouldn't be here if I was perfect. That's another kind of idea, even though it's something we're moving towards, even with the sense of certainty and safety. It's like this thing that we are moving towards, although it's something that inherently we will never reach. But I'm always learning, I'm always growing, I'm always evolving, and I'm always, noticing these cycles, noticing these rhythms. And now currently, the fall is here, and I notice the energy shifting. I noticed my internal environment shifting, and noticing the desire to open up more space for myself, for just being. And it can seem a little paradoxical and even a little frightening, and it's like the invitation to move into the fear is there, because there's still these different areas where there is that uncertainty. There is, how is this going to happen? Or, how am I going to put these systems in place? Like what's the next level look like? And, just all these different questions that are begging to be answered. And at the same time, my energy is that of just letting it all go, which can be scary because, most of us can relate to, we feel like there's a problem. We feel like there's something that needs to be resolved. And we're so conditioned to think that if there's something that needs to be solved, there's a problem. Especially, the masculine energy is like, okay, let me go fix it. Let me do something to solve the problem. Let me actively do something to fix what I feel like is the problem. And so I noticed that tendency, that urge within me, while at the same time noticing that there's just this deep emptying taking place. And as I'm recording this, I'm in the final week of this training cycle, and there's a competition this weekend, and then I'm going on a break. I'm going to Mexico for a week as like this shamanic journey. And even that culminating and coming to fruition is just this energy of emptying is what I'm getting at, simultaneously with this energy of like, yo, you're leaving, like there's things that got to happen, how's this happening, who's going to do that, what's the solution, again, all this different shit that comes just life, being in relationship, running an organization, being in partnership with different people at different levels, wanting different things from you, all that, just life shit. It's just life shit. And so I've had to really learn, and that's why, this is coming through now. I've had to really learn and really trust in my own inner knowingness, really just the knowingness of my heart, and trusting that even though it may seem very counterproductive, when it seems like the when it can seem like the world is falling apart, and yet you're called to just sit there and meditate. And it's like, okay, what are we doing here? But I've learned to really trust in that, because at times that I haven't trusted in that, I've ended up, the world's on fire and you go and try to put the fire out, but then you realize like you're just adding fire to the fire. And then recognizing that maybe the best thing that I could possibly do is to just be. And it's literally this whole fucking course, this whole thing is just being. And it's not like it's even the phrase learning how to be is kind of contradictory, because it's learning is an action. It's not something you necessarily learn how to do. You just be. Okay? And so really what this is pointing to is deepening the connection with your soul, is really just the language that I like to put to it. And I think that looks like a lot of different things for a lot of different people. I mean, some people have more of a, like the different, what's it called? The sentiences, maybe what's what they're called. Like people, what is it called? Audience, the clairvoyances, the voyances, I think is what we're getting to. So some people are more clairaudient, like they hear things. They pick up things in that seems, and I guess an easier way to explain it is essentially each one of your physical senses, in a way, it has a spiritual correlate. So the way that you hear, you pick up physical vibration that is interpreted as hearing, as something that's auditory. Even at a spiritual level, that's clairaudience, where it's like this internal hearing. And then in the way that, even, like your smell, the same kind of thing. You could like sense something, some kind of information or knowledge or download or whatever you want to call it. And then there's, the clairsentience of just knowing. And then, clairvoyance, I believe, is the seeing. So you have like your physical seeing, and then it's like the spiritual inner seeing. So again, I think that this is going to look different for everybody, which again is the whole point of this whole course. Isn't like, here's the one way. It's, here's these principles in helping you to find your own way, helping you to find your own path to pathlessness. And so for me, it's a lot of just, it's like just intuition. It's just inner knowing, which I think they would call that just clairsentience, just inner knowing. And the more that you learn to trust in that, and most of the time the developing of the trust in that is the embracing of the fear, because the fear is where the resistance is. Because the fear is most often, it's something that is what we are choosing to project to uphold an illusion, meaning like the things that we fear, we want to avoid. And the things that we avoid, we see as separate from ourselves. And so the fear in that case is an opportunity to accept, recognize it as what it is, accept it, be okay with it, and then embrace it, see yourself as that. And then through that process of embracing the fear is where the trust begins to develop. Because every time you move into a fear, every time you have the courage to embrace a fear, you realize that the thing that you thought that you were afraid of, really, there wasn't really anything to be afraid of. It was just your idea of how you perceived that this thing was going to be, this circumstance, this scenario, whatever the fear may be. But then when you move into it, you realize that, what seemed to be this big monster is really just your own shadow. And all you have to do with the shadow is just put some light on it, and the shadow disappears. And that light is equivalent to your love and your awareness of just what is. And so through that process, you learn to trust that, okay, every time I have moved into this fear and have given some awareness to this fear, it's dissipated. And it actually, a lot of times, the thing that I fear the most is actually where the greatest treasure lies. Joseph Campbell is quoted saying, "The cave that you fear holds the treasure that you seek." So moving into that. So again, as this trust develops, as you learn to trust in your own inner knowing, and then like the big caveat to that is you have to gotta clear the channel. You have to be a clean vessel. And this is why, even though, in a sense, this is, if you really can pick this up and really start to work with what I'm sharing here, like, you're good, because that is literally your guiding force in life through all of the uncertainties, through all of the challenges. If you can trust in your inner knowingness, again, whatever way that presents itself for you, if you can learn to really trust in that, you will be guided. Okay, you will, in a sense, that is the certainty. You will know exactly how to navigate. You won't always know the outcomes. You won't know exactly what's going to happen. There's still the uncertainty of that element, but you always have the certainty that where you are is exactly where you are supposed to be, because there certainly isn't anywhere else that you could possibly be. And that's a key there, because tapping into that knowingness, tapping into that sense of certainty, if you will, requires that you fully embody the present moment. And if you are all over the place for any number of reasons, which we have kind of outlined and created structures around and solutions to throughout this whole course, whether that's you just don't know what you're doing in life and you feel like you're all over the place, or you're not fueling, you're not giving your body the things that it needs in regards to your 4 doctors. And we just went through all that. So any number of those things could, in a sense, distort the signal, distort the antenna. It's kind of like a old school TV with the antennas on it, where you got to find the right signal, but there's a lot of obstruction, there's a lot of shit going on, then it's going to be very hard to pick up a clean signal. So all of the structures that we put into place and the way that you're managing yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, all allow for the spiritual guidance to open up. And that's, at least in my opinion, that is really the place that we want to get to, because that is the place in which you can actually start to drop all of the different structures. It's like we build all this shit up to help you get to a place where you can let it all go. And honestly, that's kind of where I'm at right now, just in my own personal life, is like I've spent, this last season especially, building and building and building and building and building. And now I'm at this place energetically where I'm just being called to let it all go. And not let it all go in the sense that it's just like, let it all just tumble to the ground, but let it all go in the sense that this thing has been built. It's not at its final version yet, and it likely will never be at its final version yet, but this version of this thing has been built, and now it's time, or, even another way to look at it is, this child of mine, even though it's this like brainchild, if you will, this kind of intellectual, this spirit child that has been birthed through, it's like I've been nurturing it and nurturing it and nurturing it. But at a certain point, it's like, okay, bro, like you got to go, and you got to go on your own now, and I got to let it go. And so that's really where I feel like I'm at. And again, me being able to trust in my inner guidance when it can seem very scary, has been one of the biggest things for me in regards to my own growth and evolution. And honestly, just at just a super practical level, just maintaining my center amidst the many twists and turns and obstacles and really just storms of life. Because no matter how, great you feel like your structure is, and, you've got your key processes and your life types and your training, and you're like, no matter how great you think all that structure is, it still is built on sand in a sense, because it still is built on inherent uncertainty. Okay. So as you're going through that process, as you're building this all up, one is just like, yes, this is helping you. Like, this is a beneficial thing in your life, but knowing that it isn't the end, it isn't the end all be all. It is ultimately just a foundation to get to a place to then be able to surrender more and more and more. Okay. And so I'm going to walk you through a couple different more practical exercises now of how you can tap into this within yourself. And like I said, it's really something that personally I feel like you kind of have to come to on your own. And it really is a process of, if you just lean into your fears, as scary as that may be, leaning into the fear, that in itself begins to develop this inner trust, because your heart is often leading you into those fears. And, we're so conditioned to be guided by our thoughts and our ideas, which are really, like, in a sense, kind of all secondhand. Because even like a thought is formulated through words, and even the words in themselves are this, they're means of communication, but they're this secondhand thing. And so you kind of ask yourself, well, what came before the thought? What comes before a thought? And in order for something to be expressed through words, through a thought, there is this underlying energy. And this underlying energy and information is then interpreted in a way that can be articulated and communicated. But in essence, it's this inner knowing. So if you can tap into the knowingness that is beyond the thoughts, that is underlying the thoughts, that transcends the thoughts, then you start to, be able to tap into this ground substance of intelligence. Okay. And that, for me, again, you could spin it off in a number of different ways, but that's like just connecting with your soul. Or, if you wanted to take more of the kind of the mystical esoteric version or whatever, it's like you've got your higher being, which is, again, this is like, can get into a big long discussion that I don't think is necessary, but it's like you kind of have these different layers of your being. So the physical is the most condensed, and then you have like an astral body, which is more of the kind of the energetic, your kind of emotional body. And then you've got a mental body, and then like a causal body. And that could be, there's different terms for these different things, but basically, the physical is the densest form. And then there's like subtler and subtler and subtler and subtler. And that kind of like is your aura in a sense. And so what is ultimately the physical body, because in order for there to be the physical body, there's some kind of information that is informing the body in its physical form. And then with that information, like that, there's an intelligence within that information that is, in a sense, causing or informing what kind of formation the body is in. Okay. So either way, for me, that is the soul. It is this guiding intelligence that is, you have soul, and I differentiate between soul and spirit. You have soul, which, if we wanted to use, and I learned this from Paul Chek, you know, the soul is essentially, if you look at like a, if you're like watching TV and you've got the signal coming in, you can look all, you can like tear apart the TV, but you won't find the soul. It's like in the same way you can tear apart, or in other words, you can tear apart the TV, but you won't find the picture. You're watching a show, you're not going to find the picture in the show. You're not going to find the show in the TV. Okay. No matter how much you break it apart and you're like studying the atoms of the different components of the TV, you're not going to find the show. Okay. The show is channeled in, and there's your life, your soul is a unique show within the infinite amount of different shows that there can be. And the energy that is channeling that show in, that's spirit. Okay. So spirit is in a sense this pervading energy that then condenses into the unique expression that is the soul. Okay. And so in a sense, like physically we may feel very separate, but when at the soul level, there's a more inherent connection with spirit, which is inherently connected to the universe, to just the oneness. Okay. So and it's all connected. It's the unity. So connecting to your soul is in a sense being able to connect with the oneness of it all. It's like it's essentially being able to have a direct connection to the channel that's coming in through the TV. So you can, because again, even when you're watching the TV, if you're like sitting there watching TV, it seems like there's something outside of you. But then tapping into your soul is like having a direct awareness of all of the energy and information that is pouring through, that is allowing that show to come through. And when you have a direct connection to all of the energy and information coming in, then you kind of, you're essentially, you're able to tap in to source. And so that's where just that knowingness, because again, like the TV show in this analogy is the end product. It's kind of the final product. But then everything that went in to make that happen, it's like you don't necessarily see that when you're watching the TV show, or like you're watching me right now. It's like, you're watching this screen, you see it, you see the final product, but you don't necessarily have a full awareness of everything that goes in to being able to make that happen, to the witnessing the end product. But then connecting to your soul is tapping into all of that information and energy that goes into you being able to witness the final product. And so when you're able to tap into that energy now and that information, now you have this whole reservoir of knowingness. It's like, in a sense, because usually by the time you're watching something, like you're watching this, it's already been recorded. It's already been done. So a lot of times when you're watching a TV show, the whole series has already been recorded. But when you're watching it, you don't know that. You don't know that, what's going to happen next necessarily. But when you tap into that, you start to develop this knowingness because you're tapping into more and more of the information. I hope you're following along with that analogy there. So that's an essence of what we're trying to do. And so most of that, again, is like your thoughts, all of, the constant racing around and thinking about this, thinking about that, thinking about that. That's all static. And it can be helpful static because that allows us to then communicate and articulate and turn our ideas into, tangible forms. But to access the ideas within themselves, to access the knowingness beyond transcending the ideas, you got to be quiet. Okay. And in order to be quiet, you have to be in a place that you can be quiet. If you're constantly, stressing out about, how's this going to work? What's going to happen with that? All just the drama of life, the Maya, the illusion, the play, which again is why we kind of have all this system in place so you can start to let go, you can surrender. And even in your own chemistry, if you're bogged down by a bunch of toxins and chemicals and, all this type of shit that's like bogging down the system, that's putting stress on the system. Because in a basic form, stress likes to condense. That's why when you're stressed, it's like you don't want new ideas, you don't want new information, you don't want new things. Like it just you're closed off like a turtle just going into its shell. It's stressed. Okay. So we have to minimize that. We need the necessary stress to grow. We need to minimize unnecessary stress. And so just to, leave you with something super practical here. Firstly, just fucking meditate. Okay. That can look like whatever it looks like for you, whether it's just sitting down, taking some time, like even journaling, just time, this is like Dr. Quiet, just time to yourself. Because you need to start to explore. You can get so wrapped up in the outer world, which again can be a great teacher, a great mirror, but you need the time for reflection and introspection. Okay. And that's when you have to kind of explore the inner world, which you start to recognize just becomes projected and then reflected as the outer world. All right. And then 2 is just connecting with nature. Like literally, like go hit up my boy Johnny Nature. And we have a collaborative effort called Force for Nature. But just getting out in nature again is like it's kind of this tuning fork to help you tap in to yourself. And then I like the fears, moving into the fears. Start off with small things and then you can move on to bigger and bigger things. And so once you like that's a foundation of it. And then from there is starting to like with small things. What shirt should I wear today? And instead of, maybe you notice the play in your head of like, you kind of weigh, it's like very logical. You like maybe weigh out pros and cons and this or that. And especially if you're somebody that's very indecisive about things, which I used to be and still find myself there sometimes, this is a very powerful tool. This is like the way to fucking just end indecisiveness like that. Okay. And if you're, again, like certainty, if you're like have decisions that you're not sure, you don't know what to do, you don't know where to go. And they could be like real big decisions, although it's usually not a advisable place to start because when the ego gets very attached to things, then, the ego likes to have ideas about how it thinks things should be. And so then that in itself creates this static, creates this obstruction to allow for the flow of the potential of, what's coming through. Okay. And really just tapping into your heart. So you want to start with small things. So maybe it's like, what shirt should I wear today? Things where it's like, you don't really care either way. It's like, okay, it's not a really big deal, but that's a gateway to start to access that knowingness. Cause you'll start to feel, and that's why, it's feel. It's not like this think, it's a feeling. It's the intuition. Okay. And I'd imagine, just women as a stereotype are usually more tapped into their intuition. Men might have a harder time, or at least just a masculine energy might have a harder time with this, but it is a feeling. It's very subtle, but it does get stronger the more that you work with it. And it is frustrating at first, which again, start with things that are very inconsequential. What socks should I wear? Okay. And then once you'll start to notice a subtle different feeling. You'll notice, again, it can show up in different ways. Like that's why I talked about the different voyances. It could be like this, it could be like a thought that just gets implanted where it's just like, you don't know where it came from. It's just like, yes, that. Or it could be, you maybe even hear something. And it may just be like a knowingness. Like I know for me, a lot of times I can feel my body just being pulled in a certain way, or I can feel my eyes just naturally move and gravitate in a certain direction of the thing that I should be focusing on. Okay. But whatever that is for you, just start to notice the patterns and start with things that seem inconsequential. And then you can start with things that may have more and more, like your ego may be more and more attached. Like, should I eat this or should I eat that? How much of that should I eat? Or, should I make this business decision? Like literally to the point where when you learn to trust in that process enough, you can literally make life decisions. Like and have the certainty behind it. Like, not certain that you know how it's going to turn out, but certain that you know this is where I'm supposed to be. Okay? And that's really it. And start with yes or no. And if you want a little dialogue, it's like, you say, dear soul, and I went through this exercise in Dr. Diet. Dear soul, show me what it feels like in my body when you say yes. Okay. Dear soul, show me what it feels like in my body when you say no. Okay. Thank you. And then, start with yes or no questions, because it just can be, it's yes or no. It's an easy answer. And then over time, you'll actually be able to expand into just deeper questions like, how does the universe work? Whatever the question is. And then again, that's why I always say the answers that you get are only as good as the questions that you ask. And the answers are implicit in the questions. Because you realize there's always an answer. Okay. And you may not be able to access it right away, because, sometimes to really have an answer come to you, there needs to be like underlying information. Just like, if you were just to get downloaded with quantum physics or whatever the fuck, but you have no, you don't have any basic math skills or basic engineering skills, and you won't have any substance to really grasp what just came through. Okay. So sometimes it's like, it takes life experience and you'll be guided in different directions. And this is like, even the things that you study, just like, being able to allow your soul to guide you in these different directions. But again, it's all about just quieting down the mind and just noticing the subtleties of where you are drawn to. And then it literally becomes just a daily, like all day life practice. And even as an athlete, I use this as an athlete where I'm like, should I take this attempt? Should I go up to this weight? Should or if I miss a weight, should I take it again? Should I be done? All these little different questions, I can get answers even as I'm training. And that in itself, like you damn near, you become your own coach at that point. Okay. Very, very powerful. Like, I know, this may seem confusing. This may seem a little out of your reach. I know, or like doesn't necessarily make sense, whatever. I get it. But I'm telling you, like, this is the most powerful shit that you can do. Okay. Because it's like, you literally tap into that infinite intelligence and you have that access pouring through you. Okay. Okay. So listen to the sound of silence. All right, y'all. I'll see you soon. Thanks for tuning in.